Hey guys, for this video today, I will be sharing my thoughts on the new updated uniforms for the Chicago Blackhawks for the upcoming 2019-2020 NHL season. So, as of the filming of this video, which today is July 31st, 2019, the Chicago Blackhawks have currently not yet unveiled their updated uniforms for next season. However, since all they are doing is tweaking their collars thankfully away from this toilet seat collar design that they've had for the past two seasons, thanks to some leaks that I've seen on the internet from sites such as Aesthetics, and previously another leak that I saw a couple months ago, I already know what the Blackhawks updated uniforms will look like, and for the record, all they are thankfully changing is the collar design. The rest of the uniform will thankfully continue to remain intact, and so it should. These two jerseys here are some of the absolute best, not just in the National Hockey League, but in my opinion, also in the entire sport of hockey as a whole. I mean, I think both of these uniforms are gorgeous. Now, the only problem with them over the past 2 years has been these awful Addy Zero collars, or as I like to call them, Addy crap. I mean, these Adidas collars, in my opinion, have really ruined quite a few NHL teams' jerseys, and it kills me to say that. But these collars, these crew neck collars with these big, huge, heaping pentagon inserts have been absolutely horrendous, in my opinion, since the day they came out. And for the past 2 years, Chicago has unfortunately used this collar design that you see here. Now, I have already seen the leaks from sites such as Aesthetics, so what I've done here on my computer tonight is I've gone on Paint, and what I've done is I've created the updated collar design using these two jerseys here, and I'll show that to you guys shortly. But what I want to do first, before I show you the updated collar design for the Blackhawks, even though it has not yet been officially unveiled, I mean, I might as well share it with you guys now, since we all know what it looks like anyway, and all it is a new collar design, not an actual new jersey design. So I think I'm now at a point where we're now at a point now where I can share my thoughts on the new updated uniforms, because and pretty much most people now know what they'll look like, thanks to the fact that it's only a collar tweak. But as you can see here, I mean, this is their current collar design that's now been thankfully retired, and it looks like a goddamn toilet seat. It looks hideous. And then, I mean, compare it to the Reebok Edge collar. I mean, this collar design was perfect. The collar insert was very tastefully done, and the collars continued to look beautiful, and the classic Blackhawks jerseys continued to look perfect as always. But then Adidas came along and ruined a great thing. And it's a shame, because, you know, a collar should not be something that ruins a uniform. But the sad part is, in my opinion, since Adidas has come along with their Addy crap collars, the Blackhawks uniforms have just gone downhill thanks to those collars. They're that bad, in my opinion. I mean, the jersey itself is still great, but the collar really ruins a pair of some of the greatest jerseys in the entire game of hockey. Not just the NHL, but in my opinion, the entire sport. And as I showed you earlier, I showed you the away uniform with the current Addy Zero collar, or as I unfortunately have to call it, the Addy crap collar. Okay, I don't have to call it that, but I choose to call it that because it just looks so damn bad. I mean, that's just hideous. It's a big giant white toilet seat collar. It looks like a toilet seat. And I totally agree with my subscriber, Nick. This is just hideous. I mean, I don't understand how that collar design was ever approved in the first place. And the saddest part of all is that the Blackhawks have worn it for a couple of seasons now. I mean, it's really been bad. Just horrendous. And here's another photo, and maybe a better close-up photo of the collar on their home jersey. I mean, that's just horrendous. It's horrible. And thankfully, the Blackhawks have listened to their fans and have come up with the best compromise that they can right now with the current Addy Zero uniforms. And before I show you the updated collar design and share my thoughts on it, I'm just going to show you one more shot here of what the Reebok Edge Blackhawks jersey looked like. I mean, notice the collar, a perfect V-neck style. I mean, that photo there doesn't really do it justice, but and actually maybe I will find one more. And okay, here we go. But see what I mean? That collar design is beautiful, a perfect V-neck style. And the sad part is that the Blackhawks farm team, the Rockford Ice Hogs, and I know I've talked about this multiple times now, as of late, but with the new CCM Quick Light uniform template in the American Hockey League, the Rockford Ice Hogs have brought in this hybrid collar that's been a hybrid of the Edge collar and the Addy Zero collar to create a more V-neck looking collar that actually doesn't look all that bad. If the Blackhawks switched to that, I think that would be a collar design that would satisfy the majority of us, myself included. I could live with this collar design. But instead, all we're getting is an updated Addy Zero collar design. And with that in mind, this is what the current collars have looked like for the past 2 seasons. And this is what the collars will look like next season. And for the record, these 2 jersey mock-ups here are with their collar design. These are not official leaks. These are just collar concepts that I've made. And this is what the collar design will look like for next season. So this is a very realistic mock-up on my part, because I just edited the collars out for what they will be next season, eh? But here's what they're going with. Instead of a toilet seat collar, now we will be getting a half-finished collar. And although this is definitely an upgrade over what it's replacing, it's still not great. I mean, am I ever grateful that the Blackhawks at least have acknowledged their fans and have done something. But this collar design is, it's better, but it's not great. I don't think anybody really wants to see a half-finished collar design, let alone a toilet seat. But I'll take this over no change at all. I mean, it definitely looks better, and the black piping along the rim of the collar will remain, by the way. So this collar design is certainly better than what it's replacing. So I'm very grateful that Chicago has decided to at least do something. But unfortunately, thanks to this collar design, we know that it's Adidas that is the reason why teams haven't changed the collar design itself. And hopefully the Blackhawks won't be the only team that tweaks their collars going forward. Hopefully teams like the Islanders with their awful home jersey collar that kind of reminds me of a thong, hopefully collars like that will be replaced. And the sad part is from what I've seen and from what I've heard, there is absolutely no plans to change the Addy Zero collar or template anytime soon. And that sucks. So if the Blackhawks have to continue to have this collar style for a long time, that's going to be a real unfortunate situation. But you know what? I've got to give it to Chicago, and I think that we all need to give Chicago a bit of a thanks for at least recognizing that their collar design has been horrible and arguably the worst collar design in the entire National Hockey League. And thankfully, Chicago has fixed it a little bit. They've tweaked it, and in my opinion, I can live with this now a lot better than the old collar because at least this one doesn't look like a toilet seat. I mean, it's not great, but thankfully Chicago has decided to do something. And I will take this collar design over nothing at all, because if we continued to see the Blackhawks elect to stick with the status quo, their collars would continue to look like this. A pair of big, giant, oversized toilet seats, or a design that's very reminiscent of it. And you know what, guys? I will say this. This collar design is certainly not great, but let me tell you, I definitely tip my hat to Chicago for at least trying to do something to rectify it. And at least they've acknowledged the fans, and I'm grateful for that. I mean, at least it's something. And it definitely looks way better than what it's replacing. I mean, do I think this collar design is great? Not at all. Not at all whatsoever. But I will say this, I'm grateful that at least the Blackhawks have found a compromise and have at least attempted to do something. Because this is much better than what it's replacing. That's for sure. And I am very happy that the Blackhawks will go into next season, into the third season of the Addy Zero era of NHL uniforms, with an updated collar design that doesn't look like a freaking toilet seat any longer. So, it's not great, but it's definitely better than what it's replaced. So thank you, Chicago, and also thank you, Adidas, for at least creating a collar style update under the current uniform template that's better than what the Blackhawks have had for the past 2 seasons. I mean, that last toilet seat collar design really, in my opinion, ruined 2 of the greatest jerseys in the entire game of hockey. And this new collar design definitely is an improvement. Is it a total fix? Hell no. Bringing back a V-neck style collar like what we had during the Reebok Edge era would be a true correction and a true righting of a wrong, a huge wrong by Adidas. But in the short term, I think myself and most of you will agree that this compromise is a hell of a lot better than no change at all. And from what I've heard, there will be no long-term collar fix for a long time yet. I hope there will be, but in the short term, we're stuck with the Addy Zero crew neck collar, and it sucks. But hey, this is better than nothing, and let me tell you, am I ever grateful that Chicago has at least done this. And although these 2 collars, the new collar design that you see here is just a mock-up on my part, this is the collar design that I've seen from multiple leagues, including the one on Aesthetics. So I can 100% confirm that this is what the Blackhawks jerseys will look like starting next season. And hey, at least Chicago has done something. So, if you thought that this was the only thing I was going to be sharing my thoughts on, well, I've got some good news for you. Actually, there's more. And I'm actually very excited about this because, honestly, I was actually thinking that Chicago wasn't going to be doing this. But the Blackhawks confirmed this past weekend that not only did they show some promotional footage, but they've also confirmed and announced that they will be bringing back their 2019 Winter Classic sweater for 3 games next season. And you know what, guys? Honestly, although I wish the Blackhawks would have done something a little more historically accurate, for a fullback uniform, I feel that Chicago did do a really good job with this sweater. And even though they're only going to wear it for 3 games next season, I'm grateful that Chicago is bringing this sweater back. This uniform, in my opinion, is a really nice uniform, and I think it's fantastic that the Blackhawks will be giving us a throwback sweater on top of their home and away uniforms next season. So not only has Chicago fixed their collars, and even though it's not a true solution, they've given us a compromise. They've fixed their collars. The toilet seat collars are gone. And on top of that, they're bringing this sweater and uniform back as a special alternate uniform to be worn for 3 games next season. So really, it's not going to be a true third jersey. It's going to be more of a throwback heritage jersey. But you know what? I'm glad that they're going to be bringing this out full time, or bringing it back next season to wear for a few games. And not only that, but here's another picture that I want to show you guys. And this is what the uniform looks like on the ice. And I gotta say, it's actually a really decent sweater, and it's a uniform that I am really looking forward to seeing Chicago bring back. And I'm so glad that they brought this back, because in my opinion, this uniform as a whole is too good for Chicago to not wear beyond this past season. I mean, I would almost argue that it's almost criminal that they wouldn't. If they didn't, sorry. I mean, it's bad enough, in my opinion, that the Toronto Maple Leafs have never brought back their Centennial Classic uniform from a few seasons ago. I've felt for a very long time that it's far too good to just be a one-game-only uniform. And I think it is such a crying shame that Toronto's never brought it back. So thankfully, the Blackhawks, on the other hand, have brought out a wonderful outdoor sweater, and they will be bringing it back next season. I gotta confess, I do wish that Chicago would have worn it for at least 5 to 7 games rather than just 3. But let me tell you, I will take a few games with this sweater rather than no games at all. But honestly, I think that going forward after next season, Chicago should wear this for at least 5 to 10 games a year. And to those of you who do like the original black third jersey from the 90s and 2000s, I will say this as well. I mean, I would not be against Chicago bringing it back at some point too. But in the short term, I think it's great that the Blackhawks brought out a 30s inspired faux back sweater. And I think that they did a great job with it. Even though I would have done something more historically accurate with some more striping along the shoulders and with the original logo from 1934 instead of just a black and white version of their current crest. I feel that Chicago and Adidas actually did a really good job with this jersey. And I'm going to be honest as well and say this. So far, this is the best uniform that I've seen in the Addy Zero era. The collar looks really good. The design looks really good. And I think that this is a wonderful tribute to the 1930s uniforms that the Blackhawks wore 80 plus years ago. I mean, I really do believe that for a faux back sweater that's not a true historically accurate throwback, which it is a faux back, I feel that the Blackhawks did a really good job with this sweater. And I'm very, very happy to see this sweater coming back next season for the 2019-2020 season. So, even though, and to wrap this video up, although the Blackhawks will not be switching to a collar design like their farm team, the Rockford Ice Hogs, with their new collar design with this new CCM Quick Light uniforms being used in the American Hockey League, this would have been much better than even the new collar design that that they will be using next season, at least in my opinion. But I will say this, to wrap up this video, I mean, thankfully, we can now fully 100% confirm that this style is finally gone. And as much as this collar design is not the greatest, I will say this. I think we can all agree on one thing. This is so much better than this right here. So you know what, guys? It's not the greatest, but it's definitely a compromise, and at least it's something. And am I ever glad that Chicago has at least done something? And on top of that, they've even brought back a very, very nice Winter Classic sweater to wear for a few games next season on top of this. So for next season, the Blackhawks uniform set as a whole has definitely got a big upgrade in my opinion. Not the upgrade that I wanted, and I'm sure that you guys didn't necessarily want either, but at least it's something. And how can you not be happy about the Blackhawks bringing back their 2019 Winter Classic uniform for a few games next year? I mean, that on top of this, in terms of uniforms, the Blackhawks have made a huge upgrade for next season as far as I'm concerned. But anyways, you guys, I'd love to hear how you guys feel about these updated uniforms. And I'm going to call it a wrap on this video now. But on that note, folks, I hope you enjoyed the video. And of course, as always, folks, take care. And as usual, bye for now.